everyone can relate to being sold to by a slimy salesperson. But as business owners and leaders, we do have to sell in order to keep moving things along. So there's this uncomfortable place of, I know I need to sell and I don't want to be salesy. And so what ends up happening is that for the most part, people just don't show up and they hope that, everybody just starts knocking on the door. And that's just not the case because we are bombarded as consumers with so many messages a day that one tiny little knock or touch point isn't typically going to do the job. One of the biggest mistakes I see is the not showing up in a confident way to say, you have a problem, I have this solution, let's work together to fix it, and life is going to be great again. The other thing is, as we try to avoid those slimy sales, the thing that makes sales slimy is when you don't have permission to sell. That's the biggest distinction.
Welcome to today's episode of Influence by Design. Today we're going to talk about how you can show up and be visible so that you can get more engagement and more conversions in your business. And today Danielle Bornowski is joining me. So welcome, Danielle. It's great to have you here.
So glad to be here with you today.
It's a bit exciting. We had a little chat beforehand. You're getting ready for a very big fundraiser this evening, and there's a scurry of activity happening down below. So it's fabulous to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, so I'm a member of the Junior League of Austin, and we are the largest women's service organization in Austin. And so in honor of March being Women's History Month, we have brought together the best chefs and wine and spirit purveyors that are females in the Austin area, and they're bringing tasty treats, like their best stuff, to our event tonight. And so guests get to walk around and sample from the best restaurants and the best breweries and the best wineries, all this amazing food and drinks. And it's all for a great cause, of course, and so much fun to do.
I think this is fabulous. I love it so much. Let's talk about marketing and showing up, not just to be seen, but I think that the really important thing now is engagement, because there's so many people that are posting on social media and sending emails out. It's taking up a lot of time for them and they're not getting any engagement. It's almost like they're the world's best kept secret. So can you share some of the mistakes that business owners are making that means that they're kind of being seen, but they're not getting that engagement that they're looking for?
Absolutely. So I think everyone can relate to being sold to by a slimy salesperson. We're all trying to avoid that used car salesman effort or persona when we're selling in our business. But as business owners and leaders, we do have to sell in order to keep moving things along. So there's this uncomfortable place of, I know I need to sell and I don't want to be salesy. And so what ends up happening is that for the most part, people just don't show up, or they don't do it. They'll post once or twice and hope, it's kind of a quiet post, and they hope that, everybody just starts knocking on the door. And that's just not the case because we are bombarded as consumers with so many messages a day that one tiny little knock or touch point isn't typically going to do the job. One of the biggest mistakes I see is the not showing up in a confident way to say, you have a problem, I have this solution, let's work together to fix it, and life is going to be great again, or life is going to be great afterwards. The other thing is, as we try to avoid those slimy sales, the thing that makes sales slimy is when you don't have permission to sell. That's the biggest distinction. When I'm talking to clients, if they are just, blasting out emails or blasting out content that's just like, hey, I've got this product, hey, I've got this service, hey, there's this new offer, buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. Unless you had a very specific opt-in that said, I'm going to send you stuff all the time, this marketing material, that's not what people want, right? They didn't sign up for that. When you ask permission and say, can I talk to you about this? Or do you want to know more? That's when you're avoiding being slimy. Now, how do you get to that point where you can ask for that? Is you show up and you start a relationship. Instead of showing up somewhere and being like, I want to walk out with a sale right now. This is a prospective client and I want to walk out with new business. When you show up and say, develop a relationship with this person, you take the pressure off of yourself and you show up in a much different energy that they feel and they respond to. So instead of you being like, them saying, "It's great to meet you. What do you do?" And you're like, "Oh, I do this and this and this and this and this, and you can sign up right now."
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh. I'm
Confusion, overwhelm.
right. I'm like looking across the room and trying to make eye contact with somebody to be like, come rescue me from this person who's just like yelling at me about the things that they do. But let's say you introduce yourself at a networking event and, somebody says, what do you do? And you say, how I'll use myself as an example. Like, how there are a million pieces of advice out there from a marketing perspective and they all sound good, but you can't do them all at once. Right. And you're not sure if it's the right thing for your business. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I'm a marketing strategist and I help people pick the right strategies to help grow their business. And that point, people kind of lean in and they are like, tell me more about that. That is right there. Or how do you do that? That's then giving me permission to talk more about my business. And so that's that distinction right there is starting a casual conversation that's intended to build a relationship. And then you can start to sell when you've got that relationship and permission.
I love that so much. Just thinking about that permission and that building a relationship, because many years ago, Gary Vaynerchuk came out with the, what is it? Jab, 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 right hook, which is essentially you're talking about that problem, solution. And then you're getting it's okay then to make the sale. What I see is a lot of people doing the jab, 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 because they're too afraid to do that right hook because there is that idea of, I don't want to be that slimy salesperson. You talked about being confident with that problem and solution. How can you get the confidence to talk about that? Is it just about knowing the framework? Can you speak into that a little bit?
Yes. So the thing to remember is that if you have gotten to that point where you are able to connect with someone and nurture, so they've followed you on social or they've signed up for their newsletter, they have expressed interest in what you have to say. And you are the expert in your field. So a lot of times I think we get nervous that we're going to be called out. We've got the imposter syndrome, right? Or we're worried that we're going to get called out for some reason. Somebody's going to be like, you need to prove all of these things. And so we don't end up doing the actual asking. But people have said, hey, you can have my email address. You can email me. And when you show up and you do the consistent, here's some value, here's some value, here's some more value. What you're doing is it's like you're putting money in their bank, right? Like this marketing bank here, or you're showing up and giving them these things. And people do expect that you are going to ask at some point. And it is totally okay for them to say no if it's not the right time. And it's okay, like it should be okay with us for people to say no. I had somebody email me today saying, hey, I want to unsubscribe from your newsletter. I'm like, great. If this isn't the right content for you, I would rather you have an experience with me that says, is there anything can I connect you with somebody who can be of value than me continuing to email them and email them and email them and them have an icky feeling of my name. So when you know that you are showing up and providing value consistently and talking about the problem that your client faces or your customer faces, and then occasionally you slide in there and say, hey, this is the problem people are encountering. This is the solution I have. Do you want in? That's totally okay. If they say no, no big deal. What they're usually saying is not right now. Unless they unsubscribe and then they're saying no, and then that's great for your engagement rate because you have one less person that's not opening your emails. That's actually a good thing. Unsubscribes are a good thing.
Absolutely. It helps you with your deliverability, which I don't want to go into that rabbit hole, but I think so many people get caught up in, oh my goodness, I had unsubscribes. I know I had a call with my clients only a few weeks ago, and that was actually the topic. Someone said, oh my God, I sent out this email and I had 9 unsubs. I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the data. Is that normal for you? Is it the content? Is it the time of year? Like, what is it? It doesn't mean that people personally hate you and it's a bad thing. And I think a lot of people get caught, well, if I don't send an email, I won't get unsubscribes. Yeah, and you won't get sales either.
Right.
So, what makes someone stand out on social media? Because we've talked about like the right way to build that trust and build that connection. But how do you even stand out in the first place so that you can build that?
So this is a little secret, and it's so simple that people are going to be like, "Ugh, what? Duh."
Mm.
So here's the thing. What makes you stand out is when you are authentic to yourself.
Mhm.
So if you go and copy some marketing influencer's entire framework and everything that they say to do, unless your audience is identical to theirs, it's not going to work for you exactly. So if somebody said, or you hear online, you need to be on TikTok. Okay. And you go get on TikTok. And when a camera is looking at you, you are paralyzed with fear and you are shaking your boots and your hands are sweaty. You are not showing up as your best self. So while TikTok could be a great strategy if your client, your ideal audience is there on TikTok, if that doesn't feel good to you, you are not going to show up in a way that's authentic and that's going to come across. So when you just show up as yourself, you're not trying to do the right thing because you're not trying to be someone else and follow out someone else's plan, then you just show up as you. So I live out in the country and I have chicken. And occasionally my chickens make an appearance on my social media feed. That is who I am. I love my chickens and I will talk about them. And it relates. I have dogs that occasionally walk through my videos. And it's a great video, and I am not gonna stop because,
Yeah.
this random dog walked through or the nails clipped. So, because I am in a setting or an environment or talking about things that I really care about and in a way that feels good and comfortable to me, I come off cool as a cucumber in the ways that I'm showing up because it's me. It's not anybody else. And so that is how you stand out, is just doing what's comfortable to you.
I think that is such valuable advice because a little side note, I was chatting to someone about Facebook or like meta advertising a few weeks ago. And we were talking about the difference between still images and video. And he said, well, the thing is, most of the time, video does outperform images. However, the problem is that people take that as that is the only piece. He's like, what they're not taking into account is if someone doesn't show up on video well, if they don't use the hook properly, if they don't, there's so many different things to take into consideration that when we're just looking at that little piece of information in its entirety, it's not giving the full story. So what you're saying is lean into where you are able to most confidently show up, where your zone of genius is. And if you're someone that's better at writing, then showing up on video, if you're exactly like you said, shaking in your boots, is not the best way to do it, even though most of the time video outperforms. So it's not about going with the big, I guess, from a high perspective, what performs better. It's what is best for you.
Totally. I heard something the other day that it was actually in a completely different context, and I was like, "This completely applies to my clients and the work that we do." If something feels completely like an absolute no to you, if I say, "Okay, yeah, go start an Instagram account or start posting on LinkedIn," and it's like an absolute, like you have a visceral physical reaction, that is a no. If something is, I'm curious about that. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable. That's a let's try that and explore it. Right. So there are two different reactions. If you have that physical reaction, like, oh my gosh, my whole body is clamping up thinking about that, it's probably but it could be like a not now sort of a thing. But if you're like,
Ah.
have that, but I need just a little bit of help, or I need somebody to push me in the right direction, or I need to start small with that. That's the direction that you need to go because you're just, oh gosh, because if you have on your list something that really is just sounds horrible to you, you're never going to do it. And then you're beat yourself up. And that is going to turn into a whole thing it's not productive for anybody. Your
Correct.
business, you at all.
Yeah. And I love that you said it might be a no or it might be a not now. And that's something really important to remember that even though it's not right now, it could be maybe a little bit of practice and something down the track, or it could be not now because it's not the right time for whatever your project is. I think that's what you're doing is dropping these value bombs that seem so simple, but they can be so overlooked. This is so valuable, Danielle. I love it. What are some of the essential elements that every marketing strategy needs to be able to attract the right audience? Because it's not just about attracting any eyeballs. And I guess, this goes back to what you were saying before about unsubscribes in our email list. We want to make sure that we've got the right people in our world. So, what are some of those elements that we need to really make sure that we do have?
So the biggest part of the foundation that you need to build is one, to know your audience. Who are they? What are they struggling with? How does your offer solve the problem that they have? How are you being really clear with them about how to move forward and how to do business with you? Because if you are the person for the job and they know that and they're excited, but they can't figure out, they go to your website and they can't figure out, do I schedule a call? Do I click learn more? Am I supposed to get an email? what do? They're going to go somewhere else, right? Because we live in a time where we get stuff so quickly that if somebody can't deliver that, then we move on to someone who can. And so being really clear with who your person is, what your offer is, how they work with you, that's a really critical piece of the foundation that I think a lot of people miss. From there, it's a matter of having a lead generator, right? You've got to be able to capture contact information. You can't just live connecting with your audience on social media. So, what value can you provide to someone in exchange for their contact information so that you can email them and nurture and, occasionally ask for the sale? And then what is that plan that you have in place for that combination of nurturing and selling? So those are the critical pieces of that marketing foundation that apply to every business. Now it looks different. The nurturing could look different for different businesses. The sales strategy looks different. Whatever the lead generator is, it could be a PDF download, it could be a quiz. That all of those things are customizable and they actually can grow as your business grows, but you have to have those key things in place if you're going to be able to move forward.
Love that so much. Now, client reviews, I know you talk about this a lot and how valuable they are. So before we even tap into how do you get them, can you just give a brief overview and some context into why client reviews are so valuable for us to show our audience?
So client reviews, I think, are one of the most underutilized tool in the marketing toolbox. Reviews are fantastic. You go to Google and you see 5 stars and you're like, ooh, I get the warm and fuzzies. Somebody loves me. What also they do, they give you insights into your target audience, right? They tell you what people loved about your product or service so that you can refine that, you can enhance it, you can lean into that more. They tell you what the transformation was of people, what were they feeling, struggling with, thinking about before they worked with you or bought your product was the result afterwards. They provide social proof. So people want to, I can talk all day long about how great it is to work with me, but I'm me and yeah, of course I think I can help you. But if you can read a customer testimonial from someone who's worked with me and they say the words that are coming out of your head, right? You're like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly the thing I'm stuck on and that's exactly the result I want." It's tooting your horn for you and it's that proof from someone who's actually experienced working with you. You can use it to create content. You can use it to create additional offerings and services. So you can see there's a lot of gold that comes from a customer review that we don't think about. So, it's kind of an afterthought. We ask one time, "Hey, would you leave me a review? You had a good experience." That's it. Oh no, we should be relentlessly pursuing, not in a sales slimy way, but relentlessly pursuing those reviews because they're so, so valuable for our business. If you could take 10 customer reviews and you can plug them into ChatGPT and say, find the common themes here or the common words that you see. And chat will do that for you. And then you take those common words and you make sure that in all of your marketing material and on your website, you use those keywords, those frustrations that people said, the transformation they experienced. It's all going to sell itself because you're using the words of your customer. They're doing the work for you. You just got to show up and do the fun part. They did the work for you, told you how to market it, and you plug it in, and man, they're so powerful.
Wow, I never even thought of that. That is so cool. So cool. Wow. How do you collect them in the first place? Because you said we want to pursue them, but not in a salesy, in a slimy way. And I think inherently all business owners know that reviews are really great, but it can feel uncomfortable asking for them. So how can people go, and ask for reviews?
That's a great question. Not only you're telling me that I have to go ask people to give me money for the product or service I have, and then I have to follow up with them,
Right.
to tell me how great I am. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable. So here's the thing. When people have a good experience, they are completely willing to give you a review. They know that they look at other reviews to make sure that they're going to engage in a quality product or service experience. Here's the thing. It takes a minute to, sit down and do it. And you never know if do I email them? Do I text them? What's the right timing? Are they busy right now? It's hard to do. So that's partly why you've got to follow up a couple of times in a couple of different ways. If you haven't gotten a review from someone, it's not that they don't want to, and it's not that they're not willing to. You just kind of got to get them, when they have a few minutes to think about that
People are
experience and to
busy.
document it.
Yeah.
They are busy. Absolutely. And they're willing to help, but selfishly, it's not serving that person, to do the review. So you really just have to catch them at the right time. So, and I've got a guide. So if people are driving, I feel like lots of times people want to take note this kind of part of when I share this stuff. So don't pull over, don't voice note, don't be unsafe. If you're, listening while you drive, I've got a guide, a template that I'll share with your listeners that they can just download and plug and play. Okay. So here's the thing. When you go to ask for a review and somebody says, yeah, absolutely, had a great experience, you want them to talk about the experience specifically that they had. So that what were they struggling with before? What made them decide to work with you? What pushed them over the edge? What was the experience like? And what is life like now? So a lot of times people had a great experience and they might give you a 5-star review. And I'll use myself as pick on myself as an example. And they might say, man, Danielle's awesome. And while that boosts my ego, and I'm so glad that they, appreciate that they think I'm awesome, that doesn't help anybody that's coming to work with me. Like, hey, I want to work with someone awesome. But when they say, here's the thing, I had tried everything under the sun to grow my business and nothing was working. And I started working with Danielle, and what she did was pull all of these pieces of threads together. I was just like randomly doing these acts of marketing, but what she did was she helped me put those together in a place in a way that they work together. And then I just started seeing leads roll in my door every single day. That is a 5-star review right there, right? Like everybody wants people leads rolling in the door. And so you can see the difference. So this template that I've got, I call it swipe copy. You can just like swipe it off my file and plug it in. So it's got a list, it's got a copy and paste message that you can send to customers that, asks them to leave a review. And then it also has a bank of 10, I think there are 10, 9 or 10 questions that you can pull from. And you grab 2 or 3, maybe 4 questions. When you send them that request, can you please answer these questions in your review? And that gives them that guidance that they need to kind of stay and follow that storyline to give a really detailed review about the experience and not just to say, oh yeah, they were awesome to work with.
Yeah, love that. So where can people go to get a copy of that checklist?
Well, I'm sure we can link it in the show notes. So it's just
Absolutely. It will be down in the show
right.
notes. Yeah.
So the URL is just dqbstrategies.marketing/reviews.
Awesome. So either take that or just scroll down in the show notes, wherever you're listening, and grab the link for that. What I love about reviews is the dopamine hit is nice. When you're having a really bad day, it can be nice to go and look and go, yeah, okay, I do have it. But it really is transferring the trust and it's helping other people see your services through the eyes of someone else. And that's just so valuable. They can look at that and go, oh, it worked for them. Okay, I think it'll work for me. And it's really about transferring that trust over. And right now, trust is so needed. There's a definite dip in trust in the marketplace. So I love that strategy. Danielle, if you could leave our listeners with one little actionable piece of advice today so that they can hit stop on this recording and go and do something that's going to move them in the right direction, what would that be?
So the best advice is just to show up and do something. It doesn't matter what it is, but I want you to think about what's one small thing that you can do differently that is marching towards, a more of a marketing strategy. So go ask for one review, show up one more day on social media, send one email to nurture your audience, and then plan a sales email. It doesn't matter what it is, just pick one small thing that can turn into a habit and snowball into more growth for your marketing and your business.
My God, I love that. So you heard it here, folks, just one small habit.